Not real men. Not real men. Not real men. Not real men. Not real.
Hello, welcome to Not Real Men. My name is Laser, and I am a real man.
I am Colin. I am also a real man.
A Captain Realman. We're doing a sex episode, a sex episode. Can I tell you this morning what I've been thinking about is, you know, the song, the like, let's talk about sex, baby, that song?
Yeah.
There was like an informational assembly at a school I was at some point. And the only thing I remember is that it was like, let's talk about food, baby. Let's talk about broccoli. And that is, I don't think the rest of it fit as well as just the word broccoli, because that's the only part I remember. But I remember, first of all, being scandalized because that's a sex song and I was a kid. But also, like, I will never forget what they did.
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of like assemblies and stuff?
Oh yeah. I think I dissociated through most of them, but yeah. As soon as I realized that like it wasn't going to impact me in any way, I was just like, and then daydream.
Yeah, these people didn't provide curriculum for our teachers to follow up on or anything. You're going to be okay.
No, I remember the TV with the VCR substitute teacher thing more than most classes that I actually was a part of.
That's yeah.
But to go back to the adult songs rebranded as kids, I don't imagine that when they do that has any impact other than the kid being like, I know that this is a song that's not this, and then looking up the actual song and being like, why?
I guess, I mean, I think that the part of the impact is they don't have to write their own song, which I think is probably a big part of why it happens.
Yeah, I mean, they made a whole business of Kids Bop about that, so
it's true.
Yeah.
Kids Bop, truly incredible stuff. All right, let's start this conversation. We got some questions from our pre-listeners because we still haven't released this podcast. So these are people who are just excited for the concept of listening. And yes. I'm going to start with a question for me. And then I'm going to start with a question for you, for both of us, but a question that I know you're excited about. Okay. If it's not too personal, warning for anybody who doesn't want to know things about me, may I hear some of your experience with T, and this person means testosterone, and bottom growth and libido increase, decrease? Is it possible to attempt to target T specifically for bottom growth, or am I shooting for the moon? And this is from the very cleverly named Anita Teacock, which I love.
Yes.
This is a thing I didn't really even know about when going on T, is the Teacock situation. Is this something that other people are aware of? You know a lot of queer people.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing the phrase Teacock, so yeah. That's
fair. Yeah, it's just like your like bottom growth, right? It's clitoris. It gets bigger, which is weird. And also, it's when I started going on T and I was talking to other people, they were like, this is a thing nobody talks about. And I thought was cool. And that it is kind of cool. There's like a lot of like devices that people use for like pumping and stuff, which is it's very funny becoming a man and hearing like all of your life, you hear people make fun of like penis size being a thing and people doing things to make their penis bigger, and then suddenly being thrust into the middle of that conversation was not expecting. I will say in the answer to this question, is it possible to attempt to target T specifically for bottom growth? I don't know. I think that it's not like, I think one of the reasons probably it's not talked about that much is that it's not super dramatic. Like, it's not like suddenly people can see your huge cock through your jeans or anything. It's like, oh, this is bigger than it used to be. It's definitely more noticeable, whatever. But it's also, there are add-ons. There are supplementary materials that people could use to work on that. But I don't know that it's not suddenly going to be incredible. But there are a lot of people who will post pictures. There's like, there are T-growth like Reddits where you can ask questions where people are like bragging about their 1 inch or 1 centimeter penises, which I think is very delightful, and people are very excited for them in a really beautiful way. The question about libido, I think that's how you say it, right? Libido?
Yeah, libido. I think so. If Kurt Cobain is to be believed, and I believe Kurt Cobain.
I believe Kurt Cobain too.
Yeah.
That's one of that's the wildest thing about tea, which I had a greater appreciation and understanding for how hard it is to be a teenage boy when I got on it, because it's like I got 2 claps and a finger gun from Colin.
Yes. That was the maybe unintentional pun of how hard it is, but yes.
Oh no, I did it.
You did it. Congrats. The best puns are the ones that you don't even know that you're making.
We've been talking so long about what a good job Colin's been doing of not doing puns on this podcast, which I think they should do more of. But then it was me. And I think I'm going to quit. I think part of the libido thing is short term, is like you're going through puberty. And how long do you think the nightmare of puberty lasts if you're doing it? I mean, I guess, I don't know. There's not a normal way, but how long was your nightmare?
The assigned male at birth way, I guess. Mm-hmm. And the non-feeling that I had to chemically or physically alter that. Well, I didn't start puberty till very late. I didn't start till I was after I was 14. Mm-hmm. And then it sort of hit like a truck where like freshman year, I was in the lead of the musical because my voice hadn't dropped. And then sophomore, I didn't even get cast in it. And because it was just like, I couldn't do anything because it was just like cracking all over the place.
Yeah.
And then I remember telling someone to shut the fuck up, but my voice cracked on the word fuck, and it just sort of like just took all the wind out of it.
Oh, God bless. God bless.
But yeah, I think for me, it was sort of like after 14, it was sort of like 4 to 5 years of varying levels of
yeah.
And then around college, I think my logic side started to kick back in and was like, hey, what if we did something with these and sought out tools that society has not provided you to actually deal with them, other than hit things that are, inanimate.
Yeah.
And
hopefully,
yeah, in an ideal scenario, you're taking out all the anger and rage and confusing things on like cushions or punching bags, or if that's what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
Or like in a utopia, we would all have therapists that would be free that would help us figure out how to healthfully feel these things. But, I'm saying in the current systems that we have.
Yeah.
Anyway, the question of like the puberty thing, I think I would actually be curious to hear more about what you said about like suddenly entering that thing of like, oh, your size down there matters, because as someone who's experienced very weird stereotypes that people seem to have about my genitalia, as someone with dwarfism, some of which are completely paradoxical and cannot exist at the same time, that I've experienced people saying to me in the same day.
Different people.
Yes, like size being one way versus size being another way because of having dwarfism, and being like, hey, so that's true, right? And I'm like, I don't know how to answer this question.
It's all true. Is it true?
It's all true, and none of it is.
What have you heard?
Yeah, and it's also like the guy whose personality is being straight that asks me that. Like the guy who's just like the straightest guy in the room, like that Reddit joke of like, and like it's after like half a beer that he'll like sidle up to me and be like, hey, so is it true? And I'm like, you might want to examine things about yourself if that's where your mind is going first.
That's interesting. It's like, okay, I've seen a person and I need to know I wonder if it's like a competition thing, like the evolution of like, I need to.
It's like the one way that I'm threatening their masculinity, I guess.
Yeah.
Potentially. I don't know.
They should be worried about a lot more things. You have great hair. You're very sensitive and loving. Like they should be concerned about that stuff, but they don't know how to ask about it.
No. I mean, if you ask about another man's hair, that makes you gay, and gay is bad. So you can't do that.
That's true. And we endorse that. We endorse that.
We endorse that wholeheartedly. And I'm not saying that ironically at all. But yeah, there is that parallel that I was finding when people would like ask about that, and then hearing about all these like weird politicians and old men that are fascinated with what people have going on downstairs. And like that was sort of a source of like bridge building for me, or like of being able to sort of sympathize and potentially empathize more with what was happening. It was like not to the same degree or legal or safety issues, but there was that thing of like people are weirdly concerned with what is going on down there for me, and that must really suck even more for people who are going through that now.
Yeah. I will say people don't usually talk to me about it, usually because I mention it first, because I'm a problem. But that's
like there will not be an elephant in the room. I will like
yeah. I took an improv class and we had to do it was a musical improv class, and the first thing was like, come up in front of the class and sing a song about what you want most in the world. And I knew the teacher, and I was like, really? You're going to make us, this is personal. But it's fine.
But yeah, what is your experience with that? Can you elaborate more on your experience with like entering that sort of weird zeitgeist of like manhood and masculinity, worthiness, all that stuff?
I feel like that when I started T, I think the easiest way to explain it is that there was suddenly a new person driving my brain. Like there was a little guy, like Chad, a horrible man living in my brain, who all he cared about was impregnating people. And like the most important thing in the world, right, is like just go out into the world and start thinking about how I can have sex. It was very disorienting and strange because that was not a thing that I was thinking about before. And it would like affect conversations I had or like my first impulses until I I think it calmed down for two reasons. One being hyper aware of it, and two being just like, I've been on T for a year now. And I think that my body has sort of realized what's going on and calmed down a little bit. But yeah, I think like definitely like libido goes up. That's like for real. And it also changes to me the way it works, because when I was living on the other side of this, whether it was a hormonal thing or the fact that I was not living the way I wanted to, sex drive or whatever was very hard to activate and took a lot of trust and a lot of like time and a lot of, comfort and what very specific like cheat codes and stuff like that. And then as soon as I got on the other side, it was like, all right, whatever. Are we doing it? Great. Perfect. Like there's one button and that's all that matters, which was very strange. Having lived in a completely different situation for a long time. And then, yeah, I mean, I don't think I really necessarily care about the size of my dick, but I think it is fun. I think it's just like, when things start changing, tracking them is fun, regardless of whether it's a sexual thing. Like if I suddenly started like my hair is all changing color for no reason in a way that I haven't controlled, I would probably keep track of it. I'm more excited about things like I'm getting hair on my torso and my belly and stuff. And that's also fun to track. Like, and that's like the beard situation is the thing that I'm more excited about, that kind of stuff. But probably that is because that however big my T dick is, I can't really do anything with it. Like it can receive pleasure, but I can't like impregnate somebody or pee with it. I would fucking love to be able to pee standing up, but that's going to require surgery. So yeah, in response to Anita Teacock, there are a lot of effects of testosterone. This is one of them that's fun. It does change like the shape and size of your body, at least in terms of like new information coming in. If you have a lot of fatty deposits from your past in your hips and chest, those won't move, but new stuff coming in will. And your hair might start thinning, and you might, there's increased risk of heart disease and stuff, which is also an effect of testosterone. But I think you will, give it a shot. And if if it feels right, I think you'll know. Does that help you, Colin?
It does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Question 2. Does hand size have an impact on sexual performance? I'm worried I won't be able to reach certain places. What does that mean? And will therefore do a bad job. Signed, Anonymous. I don't know the answer to this question.
So Anonymous.
Signed
for context, because some people might be listening to this via audio, I have achondroplasia, which is a form of dwarfism, which means my limbs are smaller. Thereby, also, my hands and feet are also smaller.
Mm-hmm.
This is important context to know as I answer this question.
It is. I feel it is.
Most pleasure centers, no matter what genitalia someone has, are not more than 3 to 4-ish inches, whether you're talking prostate, whether you're talking G-spot, clitoris, and obviously assigned male birth genitalia are external, so that's accessible no matter what your hand size is.
Boobs are on the outside.
Boobs are on the outside as well. Areolas, nipples, all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so the short answer to this is no. Mm-hmm. Like there isn't really, unless you have severe mobility issues and like arthritis or something that's limiting your capacity to move your hands, or there are certain genetic conditions and disabilities that prevent limb functionality and that you might have smaller hands. And in that case, like there's still options that you have. There are still like sexual stimulant aids. There are still things that you can hopefully try to get that will, alleviate or remove barriers from giving or receiving pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
So the question was hand size being a factor in.
I worry I won't be able to reach certain places and will therefore do a bad job. I think it's a very sweet question.
It's a very sweet question. It's a very giving question, Anonymous. So thank you for asking it.
Yeah.
And I think more people need to be, if you haven't read and this is a bit heteronormative, but the She Comes First book, I would recommend that. Yeah. If you haven't read, more so for the ideology of like, this is a shared experience that you are giving to each other. Rather than a thing that you're hoping to have happen, which is for a lot of heteronormative cis males kind of a goal is to like, and that's how sex
who lives in my head, who's
well,
the only thing I care about is me having an orgasm. Like that is the success condition. And it's like, well, if you're concerned like this person is about being good at sex, basically you having an orgasm is the last thing you need to worry about. There's a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah. And like, that's how, if you have sex education, which is, still being stifled and or banned in some places.
Yeah.
Then a lot of it is taught as like just the bare biology thing of like man inserts penis, ejaculates, woman gets pregnant.
Yeah.
And like, there's no even mention of pleasure barely on the men's side and nothing at all like on the woman's side in this narrative. And so I think it requires a lot of unlearning of what you may have been taught when you were younger and a genuine desire to just connect with a person. Like if you're with someone, just like asking like, hey, what do you like?
Yeah.
Like what feels good to you? Like what do you, and like if you're worried about like killing the mood, not to get too into my personal life, but when I've done that, it has not done that.
Yeah.
It has not killed any mood when I've been like, hey, what do you like? If anything, it's done the opposite.
Yeah.
So,
people do like that. I this is interesting because I think until, let's just say recently, not to dox anybody, I don't think I've ever had a conversation like that. Like literally, I don't think I'd ever talked to anybody about sex in the numerous times I've had it. Just like maybe just in the last 2 years, I've started realizing, you can actually ask and have a conversation and stuff instead of it just being like, if we talk about it, it'll ruin it. Like, it's not true. It will be okay. The first time I was like in charge of a sexual situation, whatever the binary nonsense that created that, but was the words that I said were like, what kind of sex do you like? And it was a little bit awkward, but it was actually totally fine. And the person I was like with, I knew was like both trans and on the ace spectrum. So it was like, I want to make sure everything is cool. You seem to want this, but let's figure out. And yeah, it creates a way better experience. I feel like a little debrief also is nice. Like it's not, I think I may have in the past been worried about like emasculating people or like it feels needy as a quote unquote woman, whatever that means, to be like, So let's talk about what worked, because frequently it seems like it went fine for the quote unquote man. You know what I mean? Like they're probably cool, but as a woman, if you never are asked, then you're kind of like, okay, I guess this is it. And this is life.
And like, from what I've heard, that's like seeking a pleasure for yourself as a woman or femme person is not a thing that's taught as like a thing to even be like, this is what I deserve in this moment. Mm. And so I think that if, no matter what the situation is, it's on the person who thinks of that to be like, hey, let me introduce this idea.
Yeah.
To be like, hey, like maybe this person doesn't even know about this, and like sort of hopefully make this relevant for more scenarios. Like, because I know when you're young, like you might not have access to this sort of language or like that kind of thing. And just bare bones, like, asking like, hey, like, what do you like what, and just thinking about like, I know what I like, or I know sort of what feels good as I'm trying to figure this out, or just saying like, hey, I'm still figuring out what feels good for me. I don't know what feels good for you. Are you open to just us like figuring that out and establishing safety words? Like, and thankfully from what I'm seeing with Gen Z and like the younger generation, that's becoming more commonplace as a whole, despite all the bullshit laws that are being passed right now.
Right now we kind of have the nightmare scenario in that nobody whose goal is education is teaching anybody about how this works. And therefore people are learning either through pornography, which is frequently not created for that goal, or like word of mouth, in which frequently like a man is going to be more experienced than a woman a lot of the time. And like, it's just like weird, like nobody's really being honest like a lot of the time, and people are inebriated or just like nervous, or like these conversations aren't happening. There's a power dynamic like this. It's one of the worst ways it could be happening.
Also, like the thing that you'd mentioned before about like fear of emasculating someone made me laugh in my head so hard, because like we're getting into personal stuff. Most of the partners that I've had have been at least a foot, if not more, taller than me.
Yeah.
So I haven't really ever had that mindset of like, I need to do more to feel masculine in this scenario. I need to overpower. I need to whatever, because I was just like, that's just how I was wired as a kid, I guess. I like my first childhood crush was the Pink Power Ranger, but like specifically the scene where she would kick people in the chest and make them fly away. Like that was, or when she was like doing ballet or being good at something. And before anyone goes anywhere with that, there's a very important distinction between you want the person who can kick your ass and the will do so on request part, because like I like someone who has the capacity to and like has the prowess to be good and passionate and like, self-assured. And so I
mean, we had a whole conversation when we had Dan on the podcast that I realized I didn't really chime into, but like, yes, I absolutely want a large woman to kick my ass or to be mean to me. Like something about that. It's a problem, obviously, but also like very sexy. And like, I don't think I personally, and again, very personal, but like the concept of being slightly emasculated of like, oh, you poor thing, or like, do you like that is actually very gender affirming to me in a weird way, where it's like you emasculating someone is very different than making them feel like a woman. Like it's a very interesting thing that I have realized, which I've really enjoyed learning about.
Well, also, like, I think that with the size stuff, because I've heard a lot of guys say, I would never date a woman taller than me or whatever. And I don't have any evidence to back this up. It's just sort of a gut feeling that I have, that like the desire to not be like the little spoon or, that kind of thing is from childhood issues of not being hugged enough and like not having a negative association with like someone being protective over you because you didn't have that, or it was done in a harmful way, or like that kind of thing. And I think that that's sort of when I've been in scenarios where I've had someone be taller than me. And if anything, if I checked in with how I'm feeling as a man after the intercourse.
The whole situation.
The whole situation after sex, I felt more confident in that regard. because there is that sort of thing of like, I'm 4 feet tall, I weigh 90 pounds, and I was able to, physically be with someone who's a lot taller, and like there's sort of a affirmation of like my capabilities in that.
That makes sense to me. Going back to this question, one of the things that I really like about it is that this person is worried about doing a bad job.
Yes.
Which I think a lot of people don't necessarily. I mean, I feel like I'm always concerned about doing a bad job, but if you're worried about that, I think that one of the weird things that we don't teach in our society is sex is like a skill you can get better at.
Yes. Like your first time's not going to be amazing for anyone involved. Like even if you do all the research, if you like do all the things, like physically being in it is very different.
It's like any other craft or anything. Like you're going to have to learn some stuff, and like there are tools that you can use, and you will have to practice with them to make them work right. And also it's fun to switch things up. And I think continuous improvement, there's nothing wrong with trying that, because like if you have a bad sexual experience doesn't mean you're bad at sex forever. And if you have some relationship with some part of your body that doesn't do exactly what you want it to do, that doesn't mean that you can't get pleasure or provide pleasure. It's like there's a lot of trial and error and practice, and if you can manage to not be intimidated by additional materials involved, like they can add a lot of fun to the situation, which is a thing that a lot of men I've been with have not been interested in, because they think that it is a failure of their dick if there's like, no, I do need other stuff going on. It's like, well, I should be able to just do it with my dick. It's like, no, that's not really how math works.
No. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's like, I'm just remembering stuff from puberty as well, that it's like your dick is like such a centerpiece of like how your worth is measured in a lot of fronts, not just the size, but like, it's like how a lot of people define their existence, both as a man and as a person. And like, if, like you're saying, like if that's not enough, then it's taught as like or implied at least, if not taught, that it's an inherent failure on your part, that like this thing, which doesn't have a vibrating function, unfortunately, without on its own, doesn't get someone going. And I think, like you're saying, like if you're open to using stimulants or aids or like, if you're open to using that and you're sort of like doing that research beforehand to know like what you can potentially do, there is a certain, I think, draw to someone who knows what they're doing, or is like, hey, I have this thing that I'd like to use that like increases pleasure. I think we'll do this. Are you open to that? And there's sort of a decisiveness and a respect of consent in that and that's both of those exist in that statement. Yeah. And I think that that's like something that would potentially be a boon as well.
I agree.
But to sort of affirm what this question asker might be feeling, it's hard to not feel like, if your concern is like, my hands are too small, I can't satisfy someone there. It's hard to not feel, I guess, robbed, or, like you're not living up to a potential that has been set. And very kindly, this question asker is taking this as like I want to help other people feel good versus a, self-centering it. And both, I think, are valid responses to this. And both are like, I just think it's like you're saying, it's very sweet to be concerned about like wanting to please other people.
I think it is. I mean, it should be required, but it is very sweet.
Yes. The bar is in hell.
the bar could not be lower. I've been going to some stand-up shows recently, or being on stand-up shows, and it's very funny to me to be on stand-up shows. I mean, and also very depressing for our society. Being on stand-up shows with straight cis people who have straight cis sex, which is this economy, you know what I mean? Like, why still?
Yeah.
But a lot of the jokes are just, the punchline is, wouldn't it be crazy if anal sex? Wouldn't it be crazy if there were sex toys involved? Wouldn't it be yes, still, Colin, this year, you know what I mean?
Like, I remember that being like 10, 15 years ago. Those were the punchlines. Just like,
yeah. Being a trans person and watching people like have these conversations of like, gosh, I mean, we all agree that sex is 5 seconds of a guy grunting and then falling over. And wouldn't it be weird if anything else happened? Like, it's so funny to have that. Like, it's just like, you guys are like, you don't have to be into all this stuff, but you certainly shouldn't act like no one's ever done it, because first of all, it's not that difficult. Like, there's not that much to learn, really. And I know that we treat anything that isn't that as a weird, like, fantasy or like exotic thing, but like, I don't know, get out of your comfort zone. In at least you're learning. It's also, it's a very delight to be on those shows. And then somebody like me, and then like a literal former sex worker will go up on stage and be like, all of your jokes were not anything. Like, sorry.
All of them were nothing.
You're just like, no, this is real life. Things that you've only seen in porn do happen in real life among all kinds of people. And that's fine.
Yeah. I also was in that sex worker thing for a bit. Yeah. As someone who worked as a go-go dancer and sometimes was hired to strip for bachelorette parties. And it's, yes. Yeah.
And you're a real person.
And I am a real person. And and situations have happened to me where I'm like, man, this would be in a film or porn. Yeah. I think that would be a thing. Oh man, we're really getting into it today.
We'll put a warning at the beginning if you're
just like, don't listen to this if you're related to me. Like, or listen to it, but don't message me about it.
I don't want to talk about it. I mean, certainly I never want to talk about it, but I do feel like some people believe that they do not exist in the world where you can talk about sex out loud.
Yeah. And it's
like me 5 years ago.
Yeah. And like, I think Daniel Sloss said this originally, so I can't claim credit for it. But for the assigned male at birth cis men that are listening, if you are only using like your dick or the head of your dick for sex, you are missing out on like so much percentage of what stimulation could be. Yeah. Like, our G-spot is inside our butt. So like, if you want to go through your entire life without experimenting with that, that is your right. That is your choice. No one can take that away from you, but you are, y'all are missing out. Like it's, and like, you don't have to, do the insertion thing. If there's, if you have stuff around that, I get it. Like it's hard to unlearn, but like, even if you like get a, vibrator egg and use it outside, then there can still vibrations do their thing. It's fine.
You can try it at home by yourself.
Yeah.
Without anybody looking at you.
You can just not tell anyone. Like you can, go to a store, never go there again if you so choose. Like get a thing, order it from Amazon under a fake name. Like
I feel really weird in most sex toy shops. There are like a couple that are like specifically queer and like femme friendly that are nice. Yeah. But I don't frequently. I walked through New York once very high on drugs and was like, I'm looking for a specific thing. So I walked into a store, but all of them seem to be run by like just kind of old guys that are like the same kind of person who would be running a bodega. And it's not really like, this is a cool conversation, open situation. It's just like, you need some porn. Okay, here you go. Even though they have a selection, it's very interesting to me. So I understand being weirded out by going into one of those places, but
yeah. And then it's also like weird when people are like feel weird about buying condoms in a pharmacy. And it's like, I get that, like there's the whole stigma that we have attached to sex. That's from our puritanical origin stories. But the pharmacist, I guarantee you, does not care. Yeah. Like they are just like counting down the hours until they get to go home. And like they're going to forget probably your face as soon as you leave. Like they are going to be like, all right, on to the next thing. Like it's, I don't know. I feel like if you do it like with confidence, or just like if you just don't, if it's just like another thing, if you're with someone while you're doing it who you might be having sex with, then, or if you're just by yourself, like it's very liberating to just sort of let go, if you can, of that sort of stigma around like getting contraceptives or sex aids. Because it's like, it opens up so much more possibilities for conversation with your partners or with yourself, or, literally it opens up more sexual experiences. So like,
do you know when you had that shift in your, like, have you always been open to those kinds of conversations, or have you been a person who's awkward about that stuff?
I was very awkward about that stuff up like through college, but that was also due to the systemic desexualization of anyone who has a disability that happens, and like untangling that for myself, and then sort of that train of thought sort of switched to the thing that I had of like, I don't care what anyone thinks of me, because if I do, then I'd be miserable all the time. And so it sort of like hopped to that sort of line of thinking. And yeah, like if anything, it's sort of, for me, at least feels like an act of rebellion because of those schools of thought of like desexualization and like the ugly laws that existed from the 1800s to the 1900s, where I couldn't be outside if I was a person with a disability and or houseless.
Yeah.
Those were a real thing, by the way. Please look them up. Like not a lot of people know about them, but they were real. So like for me, it sort of became an act of rebellion, and now it's come full circle into just like it's part of life. And like, that isn't what I'm focused on. I'm focused on like, what this is going towards, whether it's like making sure that the person that I'm with, that we all have the safety procedures that we need in order to, not get pregnant if that's not our goal.
Yeah.
And, or giving and receiving pleasure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took a while to unlearn that stuff. And I think it will take a long time to unlearn that stuff, both societally and on an individual level, because it's so like baked into our formative years.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to get worse. Like I listened to a politics podcast recently. I've been pretty tuned out for a pretty long time just because of trauma overload in terms of like American politics and presidential politics. But the people who are like very like just criminalized IVF in Alabama, like their goal is criminalizing porn. Like that's the goal is getting rid of is a Christian state. Yeah, in a very limited definition of Christianity.
And now people are calling for banning like contraceptives, and it's like, it's so clear at this point, if it wasn't clear 5 years ago, that this is not even their so-called like goal of protecting life in its sanctity or whatever. Like they're just trying to create a subservient working class, because even though they're also replacing all of us with automation, they still want the working class. Oh, they want prison labor. That's what they want, right? Yeah. They want they want to be able to like force people to make things in prison, because like they're trying to, in the Supreme Court's trying to criminalize being houseless. I'm going to stop myself before I go into full rants.
I guess great is the word. It's all great. We've made it great again here, and everything is going to be fine.
Yeah. Anyway, to answer the question, it's very sweet of you to be concerned of wanting to please your partner. I hope you have a qualified psychological person if you're feeling like there's stigma attached to having small hands, or if there's like anything that you feel like is causing either psychological harm or just feelings of unease around that. And yeah, just like, I think if you're with a trusted person, even like voicing these concerns to that person, if they've created an area that you can feel trusted, or that you can feel trust with them, and you can trust them on your own, just share that vulnerability. Because I think being vulnerable is hard, and it's especially if you've been hurt before. But I think it's also, unfortunately, our only way forward through these kinds of issues.
I have one more question from Curious Critter. How best do I support, this is not a sex question, but I just wanted to, it has the word sex in it. How best do I support a male presenting person in my life who has begun developing more non-binary characteristics, including breast, but who wants to maintain his male secondary sex characteristics? It sounds like perhaps this is an AMAB person who is on estrogen, or maybe the other way around. Well, if they have male secondary sex characteristics, I guess it would be a male or an AMAB person. Can
you go over what secondary sex characteristics are for those who don't know?
Well, secondary sex characteristics, well, if that's secondary, This is an interesting thing because they're saying non-binary characteristics include breast, which I would say it's hard to like say a penis is a male characteristic because it isn't in the world that you and I live in, because it's like nothing means anything. So I actually don't know. Wait, is a secondary sex characteristic like a penis or not? Because is that a primary?
Yeah. Okay, I'm glad that I'm not the only one thinking I need more information. So.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that could mean like, having a beard, having,
sure.
I don't know if Adam's apple would be under that or not, but
yeah,
anything that like would be associated with a physical identifier.
Let's Google it. Let's be researchers. Okay, so it's stuff that emerges after puberty, right? Okay. So like
breast, pubic hair, facial hair.
Yeah, breast, pubic hair. It's like stuff that it's not what you're quote unquote born with, but instead. Okay. There we go. Broader shoulders, lower voice as the larynx grows. Okay. Well, it sounds like this is like a pretty common, like, I'm just now getting into this world question, if I'm understanding it correctly, of like, well, this person told me they're a woman now, but they have a beard. What the fuck am I supposed to do? Or like, this person is non-binary, and so I would expect that they would like shave their beard or bind their chest or whatever, but they're not. So I'm like, how do I keep track? And the good news is that it's not your problem. Like, sometimes I'll go out wearing a slutty little dress because I think it's fun. And I'm still a boy, but also I still want people to tell me I look hot. So I think that's the answer, is like just compliments about whatever person is doing. If you have like, maybe somebody has a beard because they're trying to hide a weak jaw or something, like they think that the beard makes them look better. Who cares about any of those things? If they're working on it, clearly maybe they're proud of it. I would just say, I would challenge you to remove things like male presenting or this is a non-binary characteristic. Because at this point, like, most things are not gendered in this world. I don't think anything is gendered in this world. Even like Mr. and Miss are not gendered for certain people. So it's just about what that person wants. You can ask them. If they're a trusted friend, check in on pronouns every once in a while. I do that sometimes with friends. It's just like, God, I haven't seen you in 5 years. I use he, him now. That's different. How about you? That's okay. But also maybe you're okay with that. And the question is just, how do you support? And my answer would be telling them they look hot.
Yeah. My thoughts upon hearing this question are like, as someone who realized that they were non-binary, and I haven't felt a need to alter my hormonal or physical appearance with surgeries or with anything like that.
Yeah. HRT or whatever.
Yeah. So, and like I have, inherently due to my skeletal structure and just how my body is shaped, like characteristics that would be ascribed to more masc and more femme.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have wider hips than my waist. Like that is traditionally considered I hate the word traditionally. That is in the zeitgeist considered a femme trait like by a lot of people. I think if you personally, the person who's asking this question, are having sort of a schism happen between like what you were taught something is, both in being non-binary and being a man or being a masc person, and also like you're feeling like, am I attracted to this physical feature? And I would also challenge you to sort of, on your own time, please don't make this other person's problem.
Yeah. Or at work or school, do it on your own time.
Yeah. Like ideally with a trusted mental health counselor.
Yeah.
Figure out what your association with attraction is, whether it's something that you were taught or something that you inherently feel. And none of us can decide what that is for you. Like that's for you to figure out. But like, I would challenge you to figure out like, if you're feeling odd about these things, and if that bleeds into your attraction, or like you're ascribing to this person traits of masculinity, and think, because like non-binary just means not, there's like a whole umbrella that non-binary is under. There's agender, there's two-spirit, there's
gender queer, gender fluid.
Gender fluid. So, and like gender fluid is not the same as agender at all. Like, and So I guess like if you want to help, I would also, if this person doesn't have these terminologies, because I didn't when I was going through my own journey with this stuff, like supporting them by asking if they would like to see more literature about being non-binary, and like seeing like if they feel like any of the umbrella terms fit more into what they feel like, and like helping them on that journey and helping provide those resources will, is a really good way, in my opinion, to support if they say they want that.
I think I want to give some like examples of different kind of journeys that I've seen multiple times, because if the first time you see any of these journeys, it can be a little confusing and you're like, what am I supposed to do? Like, there are people who have been transitioning in Discord for years and you don't know, but they still present whatever the gender they were presented at birth because they don't have the financial resources, or they don't have the confidence, or don't the safety to transition the body, even if they want to, right? And that's fine and normal. And there are people who like definitely know what their destination, quote unquote, is, if they have a destination, which not everybody does. I certainly don't. But they are going to do like, I did for a while. Like, I know that this isn't right. I'm going to use they, them, because that's like an option. And there are jokes about like the she, her to she, they, to they, them, to they, he, to he, they, to he, him type pipeline. And that's fine. I would say your job as a trusted friend is just to give what they want in the moment, and not say like, hey, I think you're trans femme. Like, nobody can be told what their journey is. And right. Even if it's true, like, or even if they secretly know or don't, like, it's not your job to look ahead. It's your job to accept what they're telling you right now. And then if that changes, not be like, well, this is confusing, you're changing. Just be like, great. Okay. Now we're going by this name. There is a lot of pushback in another journey of people who are like, I am trans, and I'm, for example, like a trans masc person, but I've got huge tits, and that is I can't stop having huge tits. So I'm going to dress in a way that I feel like best suits my body. And if it's confusing to you that I'm a man with boobs, like it upsets people on the internet. It upsets people when there are trans femmes who don't want to spend hours of painful treatments to get rid of their facial hair, right? Who just want to live with having facial hair. Like, that's fine. And maybe it's like you get confused about, well, I thought we agreed that all women don't have beards. It's like, nobody agreed on that. That was just culture trying to, well, first of all, it's racist, but also like erasing all of this, like, everything is a gray area. So yeah. Realize that person has a whole lot going on in their head, probably. That person may have an idea of a journey or not. And I think if we can accept and love that people are going to change over time, and also may not know and may need to test some stuff out, if you can be a safe space for that,
yeah,
like, that's great. My sister was a safe space for me, trying out a lot of pronouns, like very secretly, basically just between the two of us. Like, I'm going to try this name, I'm going to try these pronouns. And then I have a bunch of friends who are like, check in with me. Becca has, my partner has a randomizer on her phone of when I'm trying out new names, and like I will like call me a different name every day just to like, that's great. So just be supportive of what the people listen to, offer resources if it feels appropriate, but also if you are a cis person, a cis straight person, and you don't, I guess cis het is the word, it is possible that your friend doesn't want you to think about their gender that much. It's possible, because I have had cishet friends who really overcorrect into sending me all these gender memes and all this stuff. And especially when I was still kind of figuring that out, I'm like, all I want to do is not think about gender. And I want safe spaces where we're just like, let's just be like we were before. I haven't really changed who I am as a person. Let's talk about, Stardew Valley or something, instead of constantly examining my gender journey. Let's just do whatever normal stuff that we do.
Yeah. And to like emphasize the addendum to what I was saying before, please ask before you do these things.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
ask them what would be helpful, because like you're saying, sometimes they just like, I don't want to think about this at all.
Yeah.
Like I just want to I want one area of my life that's like, that I can be like the parts of myself that aren't tied to this.
Yeah, exactly. I think language, I would say, if you're at this point and you're confused and this person has already come out to you, and you didn't ask questions in that moment, just like when you have a time, when you have a one-on-one, just like, hey, I don't want to talk about this forever. I want to have a quick 5-minute conversation where I know how to support you because I know everybody's situation is different. So can you tell me what name and pronouns you want me to use? If you want me to check in, if you want me to give resources or like tell you when I hear about stuff like this, or if you want me to just totally ignore it, just give me that information and I'm good. And I'll go and like write it down and remember it. And emphasize to that person, like, hey, I totally believe you right now. Also, if you ever want to change anything, I'm here. I know you would do the same for me. And that just don't like make it a huge deal.
Yeah. And if like you, both the question asker and people in the audience that haven't angrily clicked off yet are having
all the transphobes who listen to our podcast.
Yes, yeah. If you're having a thing or a internal schism between like these are made up words or like all words are made up.
Yeah.
Like they were a made up thing to sort of make sense of the world that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
And gender presentation has shifted both like in clothing, in physical appearance, and like things that were seen as desirable. Like that has all shifted both chronologically and geographically for thousands of years. Like the way that we do things now is not set in stone. And like, just all words are made up. So, if
Nothing's
someone
real.
wants to be called something, nothing's real. But like if this, vocal utterance feels more at home with who someone is, and you care about them, like unpack your own discomfort on your own time and on your own energy and support them.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. And I love you, Colin Buckingham. Thank you for having this conversation with me.
And I love you, Laser Weber.
What was I going to say? Oh, I wanted to tell a story. What was it? Oh, yesterday I have a new day job. And yesterday at work, somebody said the word laser focused and then got really embarrassed and apologized to me. And it was one of my favorite things. And it's like, no, it's okay. It is a word.
Yes. I would have started laughing at my own joke.
Yeah, I know.
That was yes.
I believe you have made that joke in front of me.
Yes, I think I have. Yeah.
And
that sounds
totally fine with it.
Yeah. I mean, you did tell me to go to jail, but in a loving way.
Yeah. No, I mean a very specific pun jail where you are lauded for, I imagine you like lying on one of those fainting couches and being fed grapes and like people are like, oh, Colin, you and your puns. And that's like the jail. But I just need you to know that it has affected me.
Yes.
As a man. Oh my God. Hey, thanks everybody for listening. You're welcome for talking. We love you. And take care of your dang self and go to a sex shop.
Yeah. That's the takeaway I want is go to a sex shop.
I'm annoyed. The thing I will say as a person, I am annoyed that good sex costs me money. Like not a lot of money, but like that I have to buy stuff. It's irritating.
Yeah. And like, okay, we're at the end of the episode. I can't.
No, go, do it.
The access barriers that people with disabilities have, like in that, like we can't have a certain amount of money or we get kicked off disability and we can't marry or we get kicked off disability. And also the fact that like more of us have to use sexual aids to like achieve just the same like equity of pleasure that a non-disabled person has is like the dual barriers that exist to that are really fucked up. Yeah. And there are, thankfully media is starting to change with that.
The first time I realized that there is a limit to the amount of money that a person on disability can have in their bank account to keep receiving an income that allows them to live it blew my mind in a way that made me very angry. So I hope that everybody learns about that because it's like, no, it's not. This is not a whole people can.
And it's like across the board, if I remember correct, it's not like per state or like, average income to afford a house is very disparate, like, in New York versus Iowa or something. I don't know. But like, it doesn't vary. It's unilateral. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it's unilateral. It's a federal based thing. So it's messed up. Buy your disabled friend a sex toy if they want.
Your job this week is to buy your disabled friend a sex toy. Don't even ask. Just do it.
Don't even ask. Just do it.
Give it to them in public in front of their parents. That's. No.
for the
Okay.
one person that's going to take that seriously, don't do that.
Colin, take it seriously.
What?
Everybody don't listen to them. They're
Yeah,
lying.
yeah, I'm lying. I'm a monolith for everyone.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye.
Oh my god.